Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Grizz Griswold of FINOS. Hope you're doing well. Wanted to welcome you back to the Open Source and Finance podcast. We did release one earlier this year and just have not had the time to do very many of these. We're gearing back up this year to really focus on video and podcasts this year. So you should be seeing more as we get going. And we've just been very involved in planning, very involved in now 3 open source and finance forums. And so what I wanted to do is give you a little preview of Open Source and Finance Forum, or OSFF Toronto, which is April 14th. So this is going to be a short one, but I hope it's helpful for you to decide whether you want to join the conference, but also note that if you can't join the conference in Toronto, we do have one in London on June 25th and then one in New York on November 4th and 5th. And we do plan on taking a lot of the video from each conference and making it available over time to our community as well. So if you haven't joined our community, I'm going to put a link in where you're watching this, and it's basically www.finos.org/sign up. That will give you information to everything that we do, including signing you up for This Week at FINOS, which comes out every Monday. And it basically sets the tone for the week, tells you when all the open source projects that we steward have their meetings. And we'll also let you know about anything with tickets for the conferences or any other webinars that we're planning on doing this year. We already had a really great one on Fluxnova. And we had a great interview with Allison and Eric from Microsoft and Red Hat that we released for the podcast before. So anyway, just tune in to what we're doing within the community. This Week at FINOS will get you started on just about everything, but you can always reach out to us at help@finos.org for just about anything else. So let me kind of get you started with the first track that we're doing for OSFF Toronto, and that is the FINOS ecosystem and tech stack track. And that's going to be, again, April 14th. We have 2 tracks. One is a kind of longer track with 30-minute talks on FINOS projects and strategic initiatives. And the other one will be on AI and hot topics. And those will all be 15-minute slots. So the first one we're talking about is again, the FINOS ecosystem and tech stack track. So the very first panel that we have after the keynotes is called winning. Okay, I'm trying to again. Winning the case for open source contribution, ROI, risk, and real world evidence. And we've got a great lineup here with Elspeth Minty from RBC Capital Markets, Rob Moffett, who's our chief architect at FINOS, Mimi Flynn from Morgan Stanley, and Mark Paulson, who heads up the OSPO at TD Bank. So if you've ever struggled with convincing leadership over how to support upstream open source contributions instead of forking costly private forks, this is for you. We're moving the conversation from belief to evidence and giving you the shared language and concrete metrics to really align engineering, risk, and leadership. So those are strong OSPO open source leaders who've been doing it a while. And Elspeth and Mimi, I know very well. Mark, I've just started to meet in the past year, and you should really tune into his story and everything he's been doing at TD Bank and the OSPO, because it's a good story. I'll just put it that way. A lot of moving parts, and Mark has, I really think, moved mountains at TD in that OSPO. But again, I'd rather you hear from him on it. So following that panel, we're going to have the FTC3 security and identity talk, and it's going to be demos, live coding, and release candidate. This is going to be, again, with Rob, so he gets to stay on stage. And it's also going to be with Chris Stair from RBC Capital Markets. And for those new to it, FTC3 is the standard for financial desktop interoperability. and it basically allowing you different financial apps to talk to each other seamlessly. And this section is supposed to move beyond theoretical spec and giving you real world demos from Morgan Stanley, NatWest, RBC. Rob and Chris will live code and show exactly what secure interoperable FTC3 looks like in practice as the spec reaches release candidate maturity. And, I've been working with Rob for a long time now and seeing him really steward, the FTC3 strategic initiative and project itself. Listen, our team doesn't do all the coding. It is definitely a whole bunch of developers and contributors from other companies. And when our banking contributors really get involved, like Chris, you really see things start to move. Besides, we have great vendor members, obviously, but when the banks get involved, that's when the use cases really start to come out, and those are even more important than really anything else. So again, join Rob and Chris for that talk. Then we move on after a break to the AI revolution in finance. So we're going to, I think actually this will be at lunch. We're going to have 2 sessions during lunch, and they're 15-minute sessions. So, definitely if you're there, get lunch, visit the sponsors, and then head back to the main auditorium, where first Hillary Carter and Anna Hermanson from the Linux Foundation will present what's the state of open source AI in Canada. And the more I keep learning about this, and I'll read some of this description, Canada is a massive global player in AI research. AI started in Canada. So, and not only is that country very proud of that, but as look at the dividends that we're receiving from that right now. Whether you like it or not, on the AI side, you know, they're anyway. The genesis is there, and in fact, Canada and Toronto is home to institutes like Mila and the Vector Institute. But there's a gap in commercialization on the open source AI side. And Hillary and Anna will reveal brand new research by the LF Research and Meta, exploring how Canadian companies can leverage global open source ecosystem and turn our own R&D into competitive international solutions. And then after that, my buddy Colin Eberhardt, from CTO of Scott Logic, I got to spend some time briefly with Colin in Paris this past year at API Days Paris, and we may have had a drink together. Maybe I had a drink. I'm not sure. With Colin and Luca and Olivier. Anyway, it was just nice getting together and having some social time instead of always being able to talk about FINOS, I guess. But anyway, Colin, who's the CTO of Scott Logic, is going to be talking about Agentic AI in the future of software development. We've gone from Copilot in 2022 to autonomous AI engineers in 2026. Agentic AI just doesn't autocomplete it. It perceives, plans, and executes multi-step tasks. And Colin's going to bridge the gap between these new tools and the messy reality of brownfield projects. He's going to explain, or I think he was going to explain, when to pair program, when to delegate to an agent, and how to build effective agent loop within your SDLC. All right, so we're going to be moving on to after lunch, and this is where actually I got to spend some time with one of these people as well in Paris. But we're going to be talking about high performance computing, HPC, and the name of this is Open Source Resource Broker, a unified API for cloud capacity provisioning in HPC. And Flamour and Kirill spent some time with Flamour in Paris as well. He did a talk for us on HPC at API Days Paris, and also did a really great demo at OSFF New York. That was really the first time I met him in person. And actually, we totally screwed up his demo. We put it in the expo space, and nobody could hear him. So luckily, the next day he got to come back and actually do a presentation of his demo, and it was really well received. So anyway, Flamur and Kirill from AWS are going to introduce the Open Resource Broker, or ORB, a project newly formed at FINOS. Right now, HPC engineers deal with messy provider-specific APIs, and the Open Resource Broker solves this with the unified open source API to provision cloud capacity anywhere. They'll be demoing this architecture and resiliency patterns, and it's a must-see for anybody managing large-scale financial HPC grids. All right. So, and I believe too that Flamur is and Kirill are going to be doing a workshop the day before, basically on HPC as well, and I think with HTC Grid, which was which came out of AWS and now resides within FINOS as an open source project. All right, so we go from the compute level to really getting into AI, and we talk about AI governance framework. And so this is the next talk is from AIGF reference architecture to reusable reference implementations or multi-agent systems. So Francesco, buddy of ours from Control Plane, and William Rizzo from Morantis, who I have not met yet, but looking forward to. They're going to be taking the FINOS AI governance framework, or the AIGF, and making it deployable. They'll demo a compostable GitOps delivered blueprint that turns AI reference diagrams into secure platform patterns, ensuring your multi-agent AI platforms are threat modeled and compliant right out of the box. Again, I don't know William yet, but Francesco and the work that he and Andrew do at Control Plane on the AIGF, on a lot of security things that we do as well, I trust them pretty implicitly on the work that they do. So definitely a must catch. All right, so we're kind of moving into the orchestration layer of FINOS now, and we're going to be having a talk on Fluxnova. It's the Fluxnova intro, applied demo, and performance overview. And this is from Ryan Johnson. So he's the CEO of Summit 58. Ryan just recently he was part of our online workshop for Fluxnova that we did in January. I'm going to definitely put a link in the show notes somewhere for that. Definitely, this is a great place if you're in Toronto to really start to understand what Fluxnova is. But if you're dealing with workflow automation and financial services, you need to pay attention. Ryan's going to introduce Fluxnova. He's going to showcase demo with AI guardrails and reveal blazing fast performance metrics compared to alternatives. Well, I just won't say the alternative, but it's BPN, and they're pretty big players there. This is I think you're going to see not only a open source replacement for that within Fluxnova, but the next version of it totally blow you away. All right. Then we're getting into later on in the day, Cal. He's an executive director at Morgan Stanley, and he's doing a talk called Introduction to the Common Architecture Language Model, or CALM. CALM allows architects to define system architecture as code, and this means true integration and controls built right into the SDLC. Cal will explain the code and core principles and how multiple financial institutions have actually started to adopt code. Sorry, CALM. Not only code, but CALM. Cal did a presentation for us, I believe, in New York on CALM, and maybe a demo too, and it was funny. Cal's fun to listen to. Cal also organized in Montreal a meetup that it was the first meetup that we'd ever done in Canada, and they had to turn away people, I believe, because it was so popular. Anyway, so join Cal later on in the afternoon talking about CALM. All right, two more. So Lytech, who's from ISDA, he's director of data standards. He's going to be talking about the common domain model, or the CDM. One model, many market use cases. And the CDM is a standardized machine executable model representing financial products and trade life cycles. Lytech will break down how CDM promotes transparency and interoperability, touching on live use cases like collateral management and regulatory reporting. So if your firm wastes time reconciling data discrepancies, this open source model could be the solution for your company. And then finally, the end of the day, we're having building the open data commons. Why finance needs a shared entity graph. And this is going to be moderated by Hillary Carter from the Linux Foundation, with Joseph Flynn from opendata.org, Nora Anwar from Overture Maps Foundation, and Jane Gravansky, our COO at FINOS. So financial services rely heavily on foundational data, legal entities, ownership structures, and locations. Right now, it's fragmented and expensive to reconcile, and this panel introduces a new open data consortium focused on building an open global entity graph to support KYC, AML, and risk management workflows. It's a fantastic opportunity to get on the ground floor of shared data infrastructure, and that's coming out of the Linux Foundation as well. So anyway, again, I wanted to give you a quick overview of that track. I hope that it's helpful. Trust me, a lot of our other podcasts will be more interview based again, but I wanted to get this out very quickly because our full schedule just dropped this past Thursday. I'm recording this on Sunday so they can be available on Monday at This Week at FINOS. So make sure you sign up for the conference if you can't come. Make sure that later on you sign up for our YouTube channel, or you sign up for This Week at FINOS so you know when the videos will come out in April, May, and going into June. The call for papers as of it is February 22nd today. The call for papers for London is still open, I believe, until sometime in March, and tickets are on sale for London as well. Again, London is June 25th. So OSFF Toronto, April 14th, OSFF London, June 25th, and OSFF New York, November 4th and 5th, and information will be coming out about that. So with that, I'm going to say, and stay safe if you're in the Northeast US right now. It is getting pounded in a blizzard. So hope you're safe up there. And other than that, I'm going to say good day, good night, wherever you are.